Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Triangle Investor Interviews. I'm your host Lithium, and before I announce my guest, just a reminder of a disclaimer. This interview and all my interviews are not a recommendation to buy or sell any shares, products or services. Always do your due diligence and consult with your financial advisor. I'm joined today by Maximilian Sali, Vice President of Corporate Development and Director of Monumental Energy Corp. Company is focused on the oil and gas development and exploration in New Zealand, along with lithium sellers in Chile. Max, thank you very much for joining me and welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Last time we spoke was November, so it's been a long time and it'd be good to get it caught up.
Definitely, yeah, it has been since November with a lot of months, so we have a lot of things to cover. First, I would like to start with oil and gas fundamentals and outlook. Global oil and gas markets are navigating a complex landscape with OPEC production cuts, of course, geopolitical tensions, and increasing energy demands from AI. My first question is, what is your outlook for the commodity in 2025, in the remainder of 2025, and of course 2026, particularly for assets like the copper Moki wells in the basin you operate?
So, in New Zealand is a very niche market. All the oil sold is near Brent crude pricing. Brent crude soared. It soared in January. It soared again recently, along with all oil prices with the issues in the Middle East. But specifically with that market, is you're getting one of the top prices for oil because there's not much oil production in New Zealand. And for gas, you are getting between 15 and 20 USD per MCF, which is 4 times higher than you are in North America. And so it's a very specific market. There's very high demand for it. New Zealand went through a period of 10 years where they didn't have a lot of new oil and gas assets coming online because the government wanted to do more hydro dams and solar power. And so what you're seeing now is energy blackouts because of the lack of this building of resources. And so they're pushing hydro dams so hard that when you drive by, and I was just in New Zealand, when you drive by these rivers, they're flowing pretty high because they're pushing them so hard for electricity because they don't have that energy from oil and gas. So, globally, I think oil and gas is going to continue. I read something on oilprice.com the other day that by 2050, they'll need 20 million barrels a day more of capacity to refine. So that's always going to increase. But specifically where we are, we're getting top dollar for both oil and gas, and everything goes straight to a facility about 3 kilometers away. So it's a very good area for us to be in. And we have now completed both wells, and we'll be receiving our first checks within 60 days.
That is what I want to hear more about. It has been, just like you said, from our last interview, that was November. What the company achieved in the meantime, and give me some fresh updates, please.
So when we spoke in November, we were halted for this acquisition to acquire these workover wells. That has been completed. We have raised a little bit of capital, just enough to get this done. We already had that, but it's nice to have a bit of room. We put one of these wells online a few weeks ago. The second well's been online now for a couple of days, and it's very good to have both work out. The problem with workovers is a lot of times they don't work. And so when you're removing old tubing that's been in there for years and such, you're always going to run into issues. So the second well we completed took a bit longer. It's a bigger well. It's a bigger pump, but both wells are now online. These pumps are able to be turned up to maximum capacity. Each pump's rated for between 100 and 150 barrels, but they can be turned up higher. So we're expecting flush production of anywhere from 300 to 400 barrels, which for a junior company, if you look at the size of a barrel drum, 300 to 400 barrels a day would be about 80% of the height of the Empire State Building every single day. So it's a lot of oil for a little company. We'll get our first payback, and then we'll go into a royalty. And then what will happen next is there are additional workovers with our partner in New Zealand that we'll start to negotiate or have started negotiating on and bring on more barrels for Monumental. And so having a small junior company with good revenue from oil and gas is a fantastic thing. And we hope to keep expanding that. And it's a very safe jurisdiction. These are easy targets, and the infrastructure is all there. workovers may not be as sexy as the big blue sky one-hit wonder well, but a lot of those times those do not work out for juniors. Even and I've seen it. I'm an investor in other companies where you see Chevron and Shell, they miss on wells too, big targets, right? So having good targets, past producers, both these wells produced about 1 million barrels to date. They're now producing gas as well. When these were put online, there was no gas infrastructure. Now there is. And so it's quite a good little business model, and we look forward to expanding that very shortly into the fall and through the rest of 2020.
Sure, just like you said, the copper Moki wells have produced nearly 1 million barrels of oil historically. So, what unique geological or operational advantages in the Taranaki Basin make this asset a cornerstone of your hydrocarbon strategy?
It's a nice way to start. These assets were shut in due to mechanical issues, not reservoir issues. And simply said, anything needs to be fixed after being used for a number of years. So these are the first big workover wells with the tubing being replaced. After all those years, the tubing kind of looks a bit like Swiss cheese at the bottom. You get sand in the pumps, you get gunk from other things, wax. So the clean out of the wells has happened. The oil will start to flow again with brand new pumps. And so these are very simple wells to essentially work over. And we look forward to doing a few more with New Zealand. But yeah, in terms of the strategy, these are the first two wells that kind of put our foot in the door. They'll bring us our money back, they'll generate us revenue. And there's about 6 or 7 other workovers that New Zealand Energy has that we're talking to assist them with or fund and become partners with them on.
Max, the June 23 news release announced the successful workover and resumption of production at Copper Monkey 2 with 3 new intervals, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So, what technical challenges were addressed, and how has the production performance aligned with your expectations for 2025?
So we will have all the flush production rates in the next few weeks come out. So flush production plus total barrels produced of oil and gas. So when these wells were essentially put online, there were additional zones that had gas, but they were not perforated because there was no gas line to the facility. So they would just have to flare it. So those were not priority targets. Now that there is a gas line on site, once the tubing has been pulled out, those new zones could be perforated, because now we can actually take the gas and go right to facility rather than flaring it. So you get this opportunity where additional zones that were targeted years ago weren't tested simply because there was no gas infrastructure. So all the new zones that we perforated are gas, and those should, in the next few weeks, we'll have what those numbers are. But the nice thing about the gas is faster than the oil, we'll get a paycheck. So with the oil, we have to send it to a port, the port of New Plymouth, and then it gets refined in Australia and sent back. With the gas, it goes right to the Waihapa production facility, which is 50% owned by our partner, and then goes right to Genesis, which is the local gas company. And so that's a much quicker paycheck.
Sure. But what specific production targets are you aiming for CM1? And how will the combined CM1 and CM2 output shape Monumental's operational goal?
So the flush production targets, what we'll have is 300 to 400 a day. The pumps were designed to produce at CM2 100 barrels, at CM1 150, and that was based on also having these pumps produced for a long period of time. And so setting the pumps at those rates at an average of 200 to 250 barrels a day will allow these wells to produce for another 5 years. And so that, depending on what the Brent crude price is, will allow us good revenue. And then going from there is the additional workovers will be anywhere from 100 to 150 barrels a day. And so Monumental could, by the end of the year, be doing to itself. Once we get our payback, obviously we go into a royalty, so we'll get less on Copper Monkey, but we could be doing 300 barrels a day to ourselves by the end of the year. And that's a really good number. That's very good revenue. Depending on the price, 500 to 750 a month. And then we can use that. And eventually what we would do is leverage that. And then in 2026, once the additional workovers are done, is take on new targets that could be much, much larger. But at this time, this is a good business strategy from now until the end of the year. And so far, it's worked out for us.
Sure. What about Laguna Cesium and Lithium brine project in Chile? Let's talk a bit about that project. That is a key part of your critical mineral strategy. what progress has been made on this project in the, let's say, in the last 4, 5, 6 months, something like that, and how does it position uh, your company's strategy going forward?
So our lithium assets are in good standing. They all our fees are paid. Obviously, with the price of lithium being where it is, not many companies are doing much. They're holding on to their assets. The nice thing about salars and brine is specifically it's the most economical form of lithium. So when lithium prices do start to rise again, those will be the first to be picked up again. The hard rock has a much higher cost base to produce, especially the clay is even higher. And so, currently the focus is obviously the oil and gas that'll bring us revenue. We still talk to the community, we still talk to the government. It's just been a very slow process. And so I would hope in 2026 we can move that asset forward at least to a small exploration drill program. But for now, the company is focused on the oil and gas, and so far investors want us to stay focused there. However, we have had discussions with bigger companies that want to come in and farm in on Laguna Blanca, lithium cesium, and that could bring some additional capital into Monumental if we could bring in a partner. But the asset's in good standing. The grades are 1,230 milligrams up to 1,230 milligrams per liter. The brine is very good quality, and it's just a matter of seeing what we can do in 2026. But I think the focus now is our revenue business from New Zealand. And also, we are a big shareholder in our partner, New Zealand Energy Corp. They just closed the financing of $3 million plus. They're fully funded now, along with a bit of the revenue from Copper Moki. They shouldn't have to go back to the market, and they'll get their gas storage strategy in place from between now and a year from now, and that business is worth probably a couple of dollars a share. And so we're positioned well for that, and then hopefully we can take some of those profits and revenue to work on our project in Chile, which I would love to do. It's a very good project. It's just with the price of lithium and the sentiment in Chile, it's hard to get investors to want you to do that when you can have immediate cash flow, which we have now from Copper Moki.
Yeah, I hear you, and that is actually the right approach. However, you said the focus is on oil and gas. Have you considered maybe to spin out that part of in another company, or even maybe a sale of that project? I understand it's not a good timing. The lithium price, the sentiment, it's very low. However, you would remain sharply focused on oil and gas. Was there any talks about that heading in the company?
Well, no, that's kind of why we also changed the name from Monumental Minerals to Monumental Energy about almost 2 years ago. Is we wanted to shift into a focus into oil and gas. So yes, could we spin out Laguna Blanca? Spin-outs are expensive. Could we bring in a buyer? Yes, we've had some discussions with that. And it hasn't cost us a lot. I know what we spent on it. It's still probably a couple $1 million from when we first acquired it till now and just dealing with everything. So we're trying to figure out what to do with that with our partner Lithium Chile, which currently is pending a large asset sale. But I think the strategy for at least the foreseeable future, unless lithium prices come back, if they do, we'll focus on Laguna Blanca if we can. But for now, the oil and gas sector, especially New Zealand, is very strong. It's going to make us money. There's a lot of easy targets, and it's just very easy dealing with our partner. Now that we've assigned these initial contracts, the next contracts are much easier. It's really a pleasure to work in such a beautiful, beautiful country where they need this oil and gas. They need it badly, and that's a great opportunity for us over the next, I think, few years to really expand that business and grow. I know New Zealand Energy Corp, this is their second coming. I was a shareholder of that when it went from 25 cents to $4 in 2011-12. So I saw that upside, and I think they can do that again. And I think Monumental could have a good chance of having a big, big run with some oil and gas production and potentially new discoveries in early 2026.
Okay, quick return to the lithium market. Do you see that? Do you believe that the lithium market has touched the bottom? Do you really believe that it could really go up next? And that the lithium projects, are currently very undervalued?
I've seen it happen since 2012. The price of lithium's always rebounded. I had a company in 2017, Advantage Lithium. We sold that to Orcobre just during the start of COVID. Or Cobre then, when they acquired us, went to almost $15 a share from 3 when they acquired us. Everything had a big run. Lithium prices were almost $100,000 a ton, and then they collapsed now to, I don't even look that often because it's so beat up, 10 or 11 or 12. So yes, I think they will. They always have, and I think the good assets will show first, like Laguna Blanca. The hard rock will take longer, and the clay takes longer than that. And so I think yes, it will. I've always loved lithium, and I think it will make a comeback. When, I don't know. But the nice thing is we have that asset on care and maintenance. It's not costing us anything to hold, very little per month. And if it does come back, I would be ecstatic, and I really hope it does. And I think it will, but then when, I don't know.
Fair enough. Beyond the projects we discussed over here, are there any undisclosed projects, partnership, or exploration initiatives in the pipeline that could drive Monumental's growth in the next 6 to 12 months?
In oil and gas, we're in negotiations for a couple of things, and those should come to fruition, I'm hoping, in the next 6 to 8 weeks. But yes, definitely in the oil and gas sector. Obviously, we're on pause in the lithium. If something comes up, we're always willing to look at it. But in the oil and gas sector, yes, there's a number of things that I'm hoping over the next few months work out. They may not, but it's always good to be hopeful.
Yeah. Max, as a VP of Corporate Development, how do you address the investors' expectations around ESG, environmental, social governance? Criteria, particularly given Monumental's operation in both oil and gas and clean energy minerals?
Well, in Chile, we're working with the community. We don't do anything without their approval. We want them to partner with us and give us their opinion on all things in that area. In New Zealand, our partner and operator, New Zealand Energy Corp, is very, very good. These governments are very strict with safety. We had WorkSafe on our site almost every day, just making sure that everything operated smoothly and properly. So, oil and gas is different than dealing with a community in a small Chilean town. But in New Zealand, everything that we're doing is to the highest standard, especially with our partner. We're there kind of as a partner. They are managing it, but we've had no issues to date, no safety issues. New Zealand's got an amazing track record for safe oil and gas production without any spills or messes. We haven't had any. And as far to the best of my knowledge, neither is our partner in the whole years they've been operating. So it's been very good.
Yeah, when it comes to the company, are there any changes from the last time we spoke with the team? Are you adding new people? What's the situation here?
We've changed our board slightly. I've bought more shares in the market. I'm the largest shareholder. I look forward to doing so after certain news releases, so I'm allowed to again. I really think this is a great junior opportunity for us. We had a very good run in January. Based on what we were going to do. Stock markets for juniors not really worked out a lot. Since then, our stock price has come off. But I think now with the catalysts we have and the revenue that we're going to be generating and the new targets that we will be announcing shortly, I think that the stock should fix itself. How many juniors make money, and I can't name 5 right now off the top of my head that do, especially in our sector.
Yeah, you got that right. Max, what about raising money? Do you see difficulties in raising money, especially as a junior company, just like you said, not just in oil and gas sector, I'm talking even gold, silver, copper, uranium, you name it. Juniors are having, yeah, please.
I think it depends on the company. I'm friends with a number of people that just raised a ton of money for their gold companies and silver. And so I think now funds are starting to come in. It's, everyone has no money until something changes, then all of a sudden everyone has lots of money to invest. And I've seen certain stocks, I'm not going to name the individual stocks, just soar and do very well, finally. Monumental's got 62 million shares out. We've been very fortunate to be able to raise money when we need to, sell an asset, bring in some cash. Now that we have revenue, if we need to top the till off, we could do something like a small financing or a convertible debenture, because now we can secure it on the barrels of oil we have. And so, I haven't personally had a ton of trouble funding the stuff that I've been doing. I know it's been tough, and I think now with revenue makes things easier. It opens us up to a bigger investor list that will take that chance to put in capital because of that revenue. And so, yes, it's been difficult, and I think it still is. But in oil and gas, sometimes it's easier to raise more than less because of depending on the opportunity. So when we get to that hurdle again, we'll deal with that. But I think the next few news releases should hopefully solve a lot of those issues going into the fall.
Okay, you mentioned news releases. How will news flow look in the next few months?
It's going to be busy. So now what you're going to see next is the flow rates from both wells. I'm hoping that we can work out a deal for additional workovers that you'll see also with detail about those workovers. All of the workovers we're doing, again, are past producers that are shut in for mechanical issues, not reservoir issues. So similar to Copper Moki, easier to fix. And then going into later 2025, we would like to start building Monumental's, I guess, portfolio in New Zealand with our partner, potentially bidding on some new blocks, adding acreage, and that would go into 2026. So I think you're going to see a number of news releases going into the fall, and obviously, good news will generate buying and generate more interest from new investors.
Yeah, final question. That question usually my guests dislike. Where do you see your company, let's say 3 years? I know a lot of things can go right or wrong. But how do you see the company? In which direction will it evolve?
Well, I think that with the similarities that we have with our partner, New Zealand Energy Corp, they're working on their oil and gas, their gas storage strategy. I would assume that once that gas storage strategy is complete, that particular business will be bought by a local gas producer. And that will leave New Zealand Energy Corp with additional cash after they've paid a dividend to their shareholders, including Monumental, myself, and anyone who owns shares in New Zealand. And then, having two companies that are essentially doing the same thing kind of makes sense to me. And this is just thinking out loud, is after that strategy is complete, having an operator and having Monumental would be to merge going into 2027. And then from there, bigger targets, either past producers or gas fields. The government is giving incentives now for bigger companies to come in and explore for gas because they need it. And the government thinks they're going to get a Chevron or a Shell, and these assets they're good, they're big, but they're not big enough to move the needle for those major companies. And so having a mid-tier in New Zealand that can focus on gas when the government's willing to fund part of it to permit it quicker, and having all the infrastructure ready is something where Monumental could go in 2027 with our partner and after combining. But these are thinking out loud. 3 years. I would wish it would happen today. I like everything. Why can't hurry up be a virtue? But things take time.
No, that was a very good answer, and it was an honest answer, so I really respect that. That was Max Sali, Vice President of Corporate Development and Director of Monumental Energy. Max, thank you once again for joining me today. It was a great chat, and I look forward to update your shareholders when you will have some news.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Have a good day.